My name is Level. I am the placement manager for Black Rock City. It is wonderful to see you all here tonight. Tonight's talk is doing more with less, abundance without scarcity. And we've pulled together some panelists from small camps and small theme camps in Black Rock City that are doing really great things. Every year we, from placement, see that camps are always trying to do more, bigger, brighter, louder. And that's really fantastic, but it also, I think, creates this competition type of feeling across camps where people feel like there's a rat race to be the biggest, brightest, loudest thing. And if 2020 and this pandemic has taught anything to anyone, I think slowing down, keep things small, dial things back, kind of really getting to the root of who and what we are has been a big lesson, at least for me. And so we wanted to focus today on this topic because we were saying, hey, if we go back to Black Rock City this year, it's still unknown if it's absolutely going to happen. But if it can happen, we're likely going to be a smaller city. I know people have experienced loss during this pandemic, and people just aren't going to be able to come back as easily. So we wanted today to be about let's learn from each other and speak with each other about the small. I'm hearing some unmuted things, so if everyone could just be on mute, and if my production team could help with muting people, that would be awesome.
Don't worry about
it. So anyway, thank you all for showing up. It looks like we have 45 people here. If you haven't already, please introduce yourself in the chat. Go ahead and let us know if who you are and where you're coming from. So I wanted to start off with a poll. We do this usually at the start of each of our campfire talks. And the first question that I have is, what is your favorite type of camp you've experienced in Black Rock City? Now, this is not a complete list of options, but let's see what you got of the options that we have here. And if you feel like there's something missing here, put it in chat. Let us know if there's, a particular type that you really love that you don't see here. We didn't put, predictable and bland as an option, but if that's something you like, go ahead and stick that in the chat. Looks like a bunch of you have voted. I'm going to keep it open for maybe 10 more seconds, and then we'll see what the results are. All right, I'm going to close it right now. I know everyone hasn't had a chance to vote yet, but this is really just a fun activity and not a democratic process. So the results are, surprise, surprise, unique and unexpected. About 80% of us chose that of the options, small and intimate. No surprise there is the second place. And 2 people really love the dive bars. Luckily, there are many of them in Black Rock City. So that's it looks like there's 47 people here. So my hope is actually that people are here to engage with one another. So I would like to create some breakout rooms so that you all can at least meet someone new that maybe you haven't before. Hopefully the Zoom randomizer will get you paired up with someone you haven't met before. So I'm gonna set up some breakout rooms and let you all talk for about 5 minutes. I'll put a warning sign up to let you know when to come back. But please go hop in there, say hello to your fellow burner and your fellow theme camp organizer, and we'll come back in here in 5 minutes. So creating them now, please join them. They'll say, click here to join. And we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Hey, Nancy. Hey, Courtney. If you can't figure out how to hop into a room, we can stick here too. Oh, there goes Nancy. Courtney, maybe you just had this on. Oh, there she goes. Papa Bear. Maybe Papa Bear never came back. I think that's probably what happened. Epiphany, are you doing all right? You're not? Do you need to be on this call right now? Like, are you just trying to help Kamish?
Yeah, it's Gary. Yeah, he can't get in.
Oh no.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for helping him, trying to help. You all were able to make a connection, if not more than one. I know I didn't give a prompt, but yeah, we want to give this time so that people can meet each other instead of just listen to talking heads. Looks like everyone's back. Welcome back. All right, there was a few people that showed up a little bit later, so welcome to February's Campfire Talk. Again, tonight's theme is doing more with less, abundance with scarcity. I want to start off by introducing the panelists that we have today. So I think a way that we might be able to have them queue up so that you can see them at the top of your frames of all these, Brady Bunch squares is when I call your name, if you just want to say, unmute yourself and say hi and wave, then people can see you. So the first person that I'm going to introduce is Laughing John. Laughing John is from the Camp BRC3PO. He first attended Burning Man in 1998 and has not missed a year since. He participated in and or led numerous unplaced theme camps and installations until 2012 when he co-founded BRC3PO, Black Rock City 3 o'clock post office. It's a creative interactive theme camp that uses postal services as an excuse for catalyzing captivating interactions with the citizens of Black Rock City. Here's a quick fact that's interesting. In 2019, BRC3PO mailed about 7,500 postcards from burners to 62 countries around the world. So Laughing John, can you just say hi and wave?
Hey everyone.
Great. The next person I have in our panel is Jeff from Camp Blintzkrieg. Jeff founded Camp, there you go, thanks. Jeff founded Camp Blintzkrieg, the playa's finest Blintzkrieg, I'm mispronouncing that, the playa's finest Blintz making establishment in 2016. Blintzkrieg is a 27-person breakfast camp that has created a fun and inclusive community built on academic rootstock from UC Davis. Jeff also enjoys talking about climate policy whenever he's given the chance. So don't be surprised if he throws in some climate policy talk tonight. Next on our queue is, or next on our dock is Ariel Vegelson. Ariel.
Hi.
Hello. So Ariel is the co-founder of Gender Blender, a Burning Man theme camp and community dedicated to gender liberation, education, and creating thriving spaces for trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming, and gender exploring humans. Ariel has been burning since 2005 and has been on Playa every year since, except 2020. I don't think you're the only one that hasn't been there in 2020. And then we also have from Playapology, Distracted. So Distracted, do you want to unmute and just say hello?
Hi.
There we go. Thanks. So Distracted is a LA-based writer-producer, was a late adopter to Burning Man at the age of 40 in 2006. He had a miserable first burn, but was nonetheless hooked. And after 6 years at a labor-intensive food service camp, where he was constantly feeling guilty and apologizing for blowing off work, he decided to create Camp Playapology. Am I pronouncing that right? Playapology or Playapology? That's probably right. The 20 to 20, Playapology, there we go. It's a 20 to 25 person camp delivering burner-centric greeting cards and flowers for those who F up on Playa and want to say sorry to somebody. That's really great. Just a show of hands, you can kind of just put your hand up to the screen. How many of you have been to any one of these camps and visited or participated? Looks like a lot of folks. Great, awesome. All right, so thank you for our esteemed panel. We might have one person join us. They're having some technical difficulties, so we'll introduce him if he's able to join. But I wanted to kick off the questions with if each panelist could just quickly say, how we talked a little bit about how large your camp is in the introduction, but why a small camp? Why is your camp small? And was it intentional? Was it unintentional? Why? So whoever wants to start can just
I'll jump in. I'm happy to. I mean, it was always going to be a small camp because I came from a mid-sized, like I said, labor-intensive camp. And I really just wanted things to be simplified. And I'm also not a great leader of people. So I just really wanted to take something that I knew I could undertake. And, and the guy I run my camp with, Hazmat, who's on this call, like we both love the intimacy and the fact that, you always know everyone's name and everyone knows each other from burn to burn. And yeah, we appreciate small camps, and we've always just wanted to keep it relatively small, 30, 25, usually it's around 25.
That's great. And I'm curious too, have you had the pressure to try to grow, or are you just like, this is the same 30 to 35 people that we'll have?
I think the biggest pressure for us is we love each other, and we all have friends that we want to share the burn with. So every year someone wants to bring a significant other or a new significant other or a best friend. And that's been the only real pressure, because we want to include and we want people to bring significant others when they want to share this amazing thing with people. But so that's really been the biggest challenge. And I think one year we got up to 30 and it did feel a little large, but by attrition and, we've managed to stay small, but that's been our biggest pressure, I think.
Yeah, I hear that. Jeff, you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to go ahead and offer to introduce our camp and discuss why we've mostly remained small and answer some of those questions. It's been a pretty intentional decision to stay small. So our camp doesn't have room to grow because we don't allow it that kind of room. So we basically have a structure where we have a soft cap at 27 people and a hard cap at 30 people. So it doesn't matter who you are, last minute, previous person. If we're at 30 people, we cannot take you for the year. And so we kind of do a structure such that we largely know who's going to be camping with us pretty early in the year before ticketing occurs. And the reason we want to be small is so that everyone in camp actually knows each other, and so we can actually have more of a family vibe within the camp. My original Burning Man experience before I started Blintzkrieg was with a pretty big camp. It was 90 people. And I just kind of noticed that, you start getting factions, you start getting like in camp kind of tribes. And like, it kind of made the burn feel a little bit more isolating than what I have, and stronger sense of community where everyone knows each other. And so I really wanted to cultivate that, and that also is what kind of led us to being a food camp, which is it's really easy to create food, family connections, cultural connections when you're all sitting down and eating or helping prepare food and giving food to people. And so food is able to really like transcend a lot of barriers that I otherwise think exist, and just giving someone a hot, warm, greasy thing to eat on playa immediately helps bring them into the fold. And most of the people in our camp feel that kind of meaningful connection. And if we push past 30, I think it just becomes pretty hard to make sure that everyone, definitely wants to be part of the camp and isn't just there to go to Burning Man for the sake of Burning Man. And so we've been very, very intentional on keeping our camp to under 30.
Thanks, Jeff.
I can share.
Yeah, Ariel and then Laughing John.
Cool. Hey, I'm Ariel from Gender Blender. We started in 2009. And so what we have always said about our camp is that we're designed to be small. There's similar reasons to what a lot of people said in terms of family vibes and intimacy. But there's also, I think, a slightly more unique aspect for my camp, which is that we've been really maintaining a safe space for trans and non-binary and genderqueer and gender questioning and non-conforming people. And what we have seen is that the way to do that is to create a really small camp in which we all know each other's names, we all trust each other, we know each other's pronouns, we know a lot about each other. And the way we exist is very much not just about being on playa, but also about being off playa. So when we're on Playa, we're usually 30 people. The maximum we've gone up to is 50. And that was for our 10th year anniversary. We decided that we would expand to 50 people so that, you know, when you have a 10-year anniversary, everybody kind of wants to come back to Playa. So we wanted to make that work and be 50, but that's the biggest we've ever been in terms of being on Playa. And in terms of being off Playa, we maintain a community that is actually, I think, way bigger. And we're able to do that by having small events. So we've been hosting play parties in Oakland. We host some events in New York, some events in DC. And then we try to just keep it like local and small, but still feel connected through some of the social media. So that's how it feels bigger in some ways. And I think we're also unique in the sense that we feel very connected to the other queer camps, and we're often partnering and pairing. So it's like this very small community on Playa, but it's actually way bigger when you step back and see what's happening off Playa. And I think that safety aspect is pretty important for us and a big reason why we keep the number internally when we hit the Playa small.
Thanks, Ariel. Yeah, I heard, you know, themes about family, community, knowing who is actually your campmate, and then knowing their pronouns, knowing their actual identities, knowing their whole person. A lot easily, you know, done when you have a small camp. Laughing John. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to share one more piece that I also think is really unique about my community, which is that we are the vast majority of people that camp at my theme camp are actually usually getting the low income ticket. Like I wanted to make this, you know, before 2020 wasn't happening and we went to do direct group sales, I seriously wanted to call Burning Man and be like, can you like create a low income direct group sales? Because I'm now calling people that are not going to camp with us that are going to just financially help us to make this work out. And so I also think that because my camp in general, like trans people and people in my community, non-binary and genderqueer people, we often have a real struggle in society where we have issues in terms of job and job security, just in terms of our identities, and the amount of people in my camp that have literally been fired or don't have jobs because of their gender. It's a struggle to just get us onto Playa every year in terms of the finances. And so I think there's something about that even if we wanted to get gigantic, it's just not financially going to happen that way in terms of like the community that we're focused on and centering.
Thanks, Ariel. That's important points that, you know, I think people have to think about who's in their community to start with, to see what additional needs they need on Playa. Laughing John.
Yes, we started in 2012 with about 24 people, as I recall, and gradually grew, like added about just a few people every year. And then in 2019, we grew to 48. And we decided at that point that we were not going to grow any bigger than that. Like it was still okay, but it was kind of like on the verge of really changing the culture of the camp. So we put a cap on it at that point. But we felt like as we were growing, and we're a very interactive theme camp, BRC3PO, but whenever we'd add more people, it's like, okay, what more interactivity can we offer? So we kept offering as well more and more interactivity, from mutant vehicles to a kind of a remote postal station on another corner, and just a variety of different kinds of things we would start doing that were different. And so that was a part of our justification for growing as big as we did. But we also reached what we felt like as a camp. We reached a consensus that that's the maximum.
Yeah, and it sounds like for each of you, you've hovered in that 25 to 30, 40 range. Is that a magic number for you? Have you tried going bigger than that or smaller than that? I'm curious, you know, it's interesting to see that. And I'm curious, actually, we'll ask in a bit where everyone else on the call is. Like, are your camps around that size too? Do you have thoughts or experiences with that intentional number?
Yeah, I do. I literally, when it got up to 30, it felt different. I don't know why. It's like, it's not a huge difference. And then when it just somehow it was more manageable, and, you know, it just somehow the intimacy starts to get lost around 30. And I don't know why that's the number. I just wanted to say, it seems like everyone is really sort of has these small camps for the same reason. And I guess I wanted to make the point to toot our own horn. Like it kind of, that intimacy really radiates out to the guests that come into the camp, I think. Like when it's a small, intimate camp where everyone knows each other, it just feels like such a more welcoming place to me. Whenever I walk into a small camp, I find the same sort of scenario. And I think that's one of the, it seems like that's maybe one of the reasons why a lot of people gravitate towards these smaller camps. Anyway, just an observation.
Yeah, thank you.
I had something to add, and that is our camp has been going for a long time, many years, and we started with maybe not even a dozen, and we are now at about like 42 or so. I think that's about where we're going to stop, but quite frankly, and the next time I go will be my 18th year. Okay, so but even though we have some of the same people, and they're from all over the world, Europe mainly, Europe and the West Coast, and maybe somebody from the East Coast, etc. But there's really like 15 of those that I know people, and the other people, it's not like they're no good, they're great, but I just don't know them. You know, haven't had a chance to get with them in any intimate way that I would, you know, really have a good relationship or any kind of a relationship with them tight. So I hug them, whatever, everything's fine. But some of them, I can't remember their names. Of course, that's me at my age. But and I'm going to be 80 in 2 days. But it's getting along. So, but yeah. But however, by the time we got up to that level, I mean, this last year that we were out, we put in a part-time evening bar, and it was this is a Pepperland, and we were doing Beatles themed stuff, and also we also did the Mikado, okay. It was, I think that's what it was. It was a Gilbert and Sullivan thing, and we had like for the last few years we've had like 120 to 150 hours of entertainment that we were doing, and that's not counting the bar, but performance stuff and games and just you name it.
Yeah, you can do a lot. You can do a lot with a few, not a million hands, but even a small number of hands. Gerald, you just you said you're from Pepperland, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to know which camp you were from. Just for anyone else that wants to participate, I think a good way to do it is just to put your hand up if people know how to do that in Zoom, you can just go to the participant screen and then just raise your hand. I will start a queue. That way we don't just talk all over each other and step on each other. So
the Zoom option, the hand up option, it doesn't seem to be available. Sorry.
Oh, is it not available? Another way to do it would be, oh, actually it's in reactions.
It's in reactions.
I apologize. They move that button around with these Zoom updates, so it's in reactions. All right, let's keep going with the panel. I actually want to introduce a couple new panelists here because we had some technical difficulties, but they have now joined us. So the first is Kamish, who was a co-founder of Videogasm, which is part of the VW bus camp. And Kamish, are you there? Can you just unmute and say hello so we can see you? Kamish.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, good to see you all. Yeah, we started, I co-founded Videogasm with Ed Lazar and some other friends, and we actually decided to become a registered theme camp, mostly to have an address in the playa. We were doing a documentary production on the Burn in 1998. And a bunch of my friends who also came to Burning Man that year also started theme camps. And one was the VW bus camp, started by Chai Guy in 1998. And Videogasm, the first year was maybe 5 people or 6. And then VW bus camp, we call it bus camp back then, was maybe 25. And since then, both camp sizes gotten bigger and smaller, whatever people were doing. In 2010, bus camp was over 130 people. But then in 2005, it was back down to about 25. So it does change. And a lot of it has to do with what people are doing.
Great.
Videogasm has maintained a pretty steady population around 50 for the last 10 burns or so. And it makes sense for them with the shows that we do at Videogasm. We need a core of people who know how to run the production equipment and do shows. Videogasm pretty famous for doing the Friday Rocky Horror Picture Shows live. And we do that right in the Esplanade. And we do need a certain core who can play the roles. But with size, it was interesting. Before tickets became a big issue, you know, a bunch of friends could, you know, buy tickets and set up on the, you know, in Black Rock City somewhere and have quote unquote a theme camp without, you know, being officially placed, and their friends would find them, and, you know, Playa Info could have a little sign up for you. So on the whole, it's like, I think now people are forming theme camps in order to be able to participate on the Playa period. And that's kind of a shame, because it's like, you know, it kind of forces us to participate in a certain way, which is, it's just a reality. I understand that, but it'd be kind of cool if you could go back to where it's like you could just buy a ticket and show up with your friends and have a good burn.
Yeah, I know some regional events can act that way, or even just going on a camping trip can be that way.
Absolutely.
Black Rock City, it's a lot more tough these days with the demand on wanting to get through the gate, and then folks who want to get placed. I'm going to introduce one other person. I see two people in the queue. So the question here is, why a small theme camp? Why keep your camp small? I have a few other questions that I'd be happy to get more discussion going on, but it seems like it'll flow as well. So the next person I'm going to introduce before we get to the folks that raise their hands is Kirk from Camp Walter. So Camp Walter was founded in 2009, which was a small camp for many years. And Kirk was part of that camp while he learned the ropes from VW Bus Camp from Kamish, who just spoke. Camp Walter ultimately built too many big art cars and were pushed out to the Esplanade. You may be familiar with them, Calliope and those giant VW buses. And at the same time, their camp grew from a dozen semi-loads, or grew to a dozen semi-loads and 250 campmates. So they started small, grew really big. And actually in 2019, they downsized to 4 semi-loads and 175. So, you know, it's not down to 25, but there's obviously some trimming that was done. So Kirk, do you want to come on to screen, unmute yourself, and just say
Sure. Hi, everybody. Yeah. You know, we were certainly a small camp. I loved those days. And as I heard people talk about why to have a small camp, it in some ways makes me pine for those earlier times. And in 2020, we actually had 0 people in our camp. So that was probably the smallest that we've been. But if, you know, the next time we go, I believe that we'll actually be significantly smaller even than 2019.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm actually, that's where I want to go later in the conversation is, you know, how are people expecting their camps to be if we were able to have a burn this year? You know, significantly smaller is something we've been hearing across the board. So I'm curious how that might impact, you know, your interactivity or the structures you build, how that impacts the culture. So if people already have some thoughts spinning about that, we'll come to that in a second. I will go to the queue now. We have Yay first, and then Tango Robot. So please say who you are and what camp you're with before you say what you want to say. Go for it, Yay.
So, playa name is Yay. Real life name is Jay. Not a great leap there. 20 years. Started with Ojai Bureau of Pleasure, then with Department of Tethered Aviation, the kites, then Empire of Dirt, Mutant Vehicles, and currently Destiny Lounge 3D Trip or Trap. I have shepherded Talk to God on the playa since it started in 2003 through different camps. And what my first camp got up to 80 people, and it was too many hippies. There were too many sparkle pony hippie type people, you know, and the camps that I've been in since that camp broke because too many hippies, have all maintained around 40 people. And that has proven to be the best thing. Also, each of those camps has lived on the Esplanade and back in the burbs. And each of those camps have decided that being back in the burbs is better. Destiny Lounge was asked to move, we're in the 3 o'clock sector. We were asked to move up to the Esplanade in 2018. And we saw over 2,000 people a night. That's too many people for 40 people to support when you have, and we have 24/7 interactivity, right? So trip or trap at night, talk to God, blowjobs during the daytime, not those kind of blowjobs. And so my personal experience, always having lived in a theme camp, has been that right around 40, where people work together and they make food together and they're all friends with each other and you know all the faces and all of that, has always been the best.
Yeah, I think you're pointing out location also matters, right? Size isn't everything. So a small camp.
Bigger is not better.
Yeah. And
all the women will tell you that.
And
right?
men. I think there's men out there that will say that. All right. Thank you, Ye, for sharing that.
You. Thank you.
We'll take Tango Robot next, and then I'm going to kind of move on to another question.
Hello, I'm Pascal on the playa. I was adopted by actually the Commission's Volkswagen bus camp at the time. Gary wasn't running it at the time, but I've been a member and I've been DPW for the last 4 or 5 burns. What I thought was amazing about the approach of bus camp was it's a camp of camps. It's a composite of people who are basically self-reliant, but of course, if something is missing, something goes wrong, the community is there to help. And that approach made, I thought, the whole, well, that particular camp, which is, I consider my home camp, ultimately really, really viable. Like if everybody comes in with an approach of being self-reliant, but also knowing that they're part of a community that will sustain them, and that those subgroups then scale up to the whole of Burning Man, that seems to be, to me, the magic of what Burning Man can do for communities.
Yeah, that is a really great point. Thank you, Tango Robot, or Pascal.
Pascal, yeah, sorry, I had to use my email, like I couldn't log in.
No worries. So Distracted mentioned something earlier that I thought was really interesting about, like, you know, having one extra friend. If everyone had one extra friend or partner or family member want to go to the burn, that's double the size of your camp already, right? How do you manage, how have people managed that? How have you managed to say, we love you, but there's no room for you? Or, you know, are there like rotating systems of getting people in and out? Or are you mentoring people to start their own camps, but not being part of yours? I'm curious for the panelists first. Yeah, how have you done that? And obviously, I guess with Camp Walter, you just kind of really grew really fast. So you might not be able to answer that question as well, but you had to trim some. So I'm curious how that contraction process worked too. Ariel, do you mind launching us off? I don't know if you
Sure,
have, yeah.
I can launch us off. So We've actually never had that problem, right? I think what we're really big on is what does it look like to be not just a camp that goes to playa, but what does it look like to create a year-round community? What does it look like to have support systems for each other, to talk to each other, to have potlucks, to have play parties, to build a community that's not just about getting out there. And so if you can't come for a year for whatever reason, you didn't have the money or something else was happening for you, or you had something at the exact same time, that you still feel connected, that you're still a gender blender, that once you're a part of us, you're always a part of us, that this is way bigger than 1 week on the playa. And I think because we think of it that way, it's never been like a stress on like, oh, someone wants to come and they can't be with us. We've actually never had that happen. We've never had to be like, there's so many people that we need to turn people away. I think we're more about how do we get ourselves back there year after year? Like, how do we financially get ourselves back there year after year? How do we help people who are going through so much? How do we deal with all the many experiences that we have? How can we make sure that our family gets back there every year? And if we were to get gigantic, like if suddenly there was like this massive influx, something that I would love to see though is more camps with a similar theme, right? So I think about the queerhood, and I've noticed that there are a lot of amazing gay camps, and there's one awesome lesbian camp. And then we've kind of been holding down the trans and non-binary and genderqueer community. And I would love to see other camps take on this theme. And I think we've also been holding down this education piece. And it's not just, you know, we've always been a camp that welcomes all people of all genders. And so our goal has also been having everyone, no matter what your gender is, have a space to be expansive and a space to explore. And I think that I have like this dream of seeing multiple camps, right? It's like, if you don't fit into one gay boy camp, there's like 15 other gay boy camps for you to go to, right? So like, I would love there to be more camps with our theme. I would love to see that happen. I also think that there's like a real conversation to be had around the pressure to expand. Like, I do feel like even honestly in the placement application, there's a lot of pressure to be like, what is it that your camp is producing? And it's like, I want to have this conversation about maybe production doesn't always have to be this outward facing thing. Right? Like, we had 1 year where we focused on the healing of our own people and our own community. And we were doing a lot of stuff that maybe you wouldn't have even noticed or realized that we were doing. And it's like, where is that accounted for, right? Like, where in the application does it talk about internal healing or running healing workshops or having a space where just your community can actually thrive and grow, especially if you have a community that doesn't get to thrive and grow in so many of the spaces that exist outside of Playa. I think there are certain camps that I'm like, just existing should be enough. I feel that way for a lot of the queer camps. I feel that way for the POC camp. I feel that way for K Viva. I feel that way about the camps that are doing any kind of like AA camp, because it's hard, right? That's like a hard theme camp to run out there. So there's a piece of me that thinks that certain camps, it's like, why is there so much pressure for us to grow in a certain way? Can we honor? Like, I love that this whole thing is about honoring the small. And I've also always really wanted to see the gift economy kind of shift a little bit to happen a little bit more before we get onto Playa. So what I've seen is that when you get onto Playa, gifting really happens and it's amazing and it's awesome. But you look around and you're like, well, camps that are gigantic, it means they have a lot of people pumping in a lot of dues. Right? Then you also have camps that just have wealthy funders, right? So it's like, what if some of the gifting started happening before you even got out there, so that camps like my camp, who just struggle to bring our people back year after year, who are like, you know, having half the camp on low income tickets, we're trying to fundraise to make sure that we always, every year we have at least 2 tickets designed that are free tickets for people of color from our community to be able to come. Like, just, there's a part of me that's like, hey, can this gifting get way bigger so that camps that have a lot of people gift to camps that don't have a lot of people before we even get out there, and then our events would be bigger, or our art would be bigger, or our domes would be bigger, right? Otherwise, I think small camps, I don't think there's a problem with having a small camp. I think there's something beautiful about the intimacy of it, but I feel like our infrastructure also stays small. Right? Like the physical infrastructure, like we couldn't buy a proper dome for years and years and years. We just got one like 2 years ago, right? So part of me is like, hey, could we have started that gifting a little bit earlier? Like, can we do like a really radical gift economy where we just are redistributing wealth? So that's kind of my dream vision, is to see that redistribution of wealth happen before we're actually on Playa.
Thanks, Ariel. Wow, you brought up a lot of really fantastic points. I think each one of them could spin off to be their own topic and conversation. So I don't want to to take away from that. But I think hopefully I saw a lot of snaps and claps. So I think there could be some greater critical mass there. Other thoughts from other panelists? I know I launched into the question of like, how do you keep your camps small, and not just how do you keep not just all the things that Ariel talked about, but we can launch into any of those. I think I see Jeff, and then Distracted, and then Laughing John, and then we'll maybe open it up beyond that.
Yeah, so I think that maybe we're simultaneously in an interesting location with my camp, and also maybe not, which is we pull a huge mass of our camp from graduate students out of UC Davis, which is really where we got started. So we have this rotation that kind of naturally happens as people gradually leave the area. It becomes harder for them to come to Burning Man. They maybe lose Burning Man as a priority. And so we do have a level of natural attrition to some degree with people that are going to return every year. This also allows us to keep a really strong center of core people for at least like 3-ish years or so when they join our camp until they run through the risk of rotation. So we definitely have people that do not want to go to Burning Man every year. That compounds with people, having different priorities for limited vacation time, which is maybe a very US kind of issue. And so a lot of people in our camp do decide that, for 2 weeks, they'd maybe rather not go to Burning Man every year. And so we do have some people that wait out on the sidelines. The other thing that really helps ensure that our camp kind of can maintain its size, not going too low, not going too high, is that we do have a lot of expectations for people to be involved with the camp before we go to Playa. So we have favoritism for people that will either be able to come out and help prepare the trailer, do some build for the couple of weeks before Burning Man, even do build at Burning Man. And if people can't commit to that time, you get into some equity concerns with that, which we also are willing to balance out, but it also means that you're getting a lower priority for our.
I'm so sorry, Jeff, I accidentally muted you.
Yeah, cool. Great. So we definitely have a priority for people that are able to help with our camp before we go to Playa. And we do have a wait list every year for our camp. So we could potentially grow as a camp. Our wait list, I think, I guess we did have a 2020 wait list because we started the camp planning process before COVID hit. And so at that time, I think we had 6 people on the wait list. We start early planning with people that are likely to come, and we have them give kind of a probability that they actually will be able to come by the time August rolls around. I've heard this from tons of other theme camp organizers, like, how can you even begin to start a plan that early in the year when people don't even know if they can make it to Burning Man until like July? And so we try to reduce some of that risk and have people that, can commit to camp earlier. They end up more likely to be in our camps, and then we sort of spring out a wait list. Once we kind of have our initial core camp established with people that are definitely committed, they're kind of matched up with tickets, we have a strategy, we see how many additional spaces are open, we go through our wait list, and we look at adding people from the wait list if we need to fill additional spaces. The main leadership has a discussion about people, what they can bring. We have a camp application where people talk about what interactivity they're really interested in, interesting ideas. We look at adding new diversity, new perspectives to our camp through that waitlist process. And it largely works out. So I think in general, we have a pretty good organization process in the beginning to help not only prevent our camp from growing too big, but to make sure that we have enough people, which is kind of the other side of that knife. And then, we're just kind of in a lucky place where we do have a natural churn rate.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, I think I heard really different things. Ariel's talking about like a year-round community, and the entry points aren't as like, let's just go to the burn. Whereas it sounds like Jeff, yours is a little bit more about like, hey, what are we doing over those 2 weeks, and how do we get the right amount of folks for that interactivity through applications and whatnot. I think Laughing John was next, and then, oh no, I'm sorry, Distracted was next, and then Laughing John.
I mean, I was going to just comment real quickly, like, because we've had a few times with the size issue where we felt like we didn't want to expand, and we fostered some pretty good relationships with sort of sister camps that either are in the same city. We're in LA, so we have some other camps from here and Sacramento and the Bay Area. And we feel pretty comfortable like kicking some of the extra people, like we can send them over there, and they've done the same with us. And it feels, and we know that they have some of the same values, and we know that people that we send there will feel good and be happy. And it's worked out a few times, especially when we've had people that have like too big a footprint, because we have a tiny plot usually most years. And sometimes people want to bring in another RV, and we can't do that. But we have we have friends with a mid-sized camp that can accommodate you, and you'll love them. And so that's just been one of our solves.
Yeah, sister camps, the expanded burner network, and
exactly
hot potatoing it around. Laughing John, and then I see Flash with the hand up.
Great. Yes, I'm a design thinker, so I like to design for whatever it is I want to create in our camp, or we want to create in our camp. And a lot of the criteria I developed for design came from running unplaced theme camp. So I'm an advocate. If you want to do a place theme camp, start with an unplaced theme camp and kind of get your chops together. But one thing I learned in an unplaced theme camp was that I only want to be participating in low drama camps. And so we developed criteria for who's going to be in our camp. And someone's got to be able to vouch for whoever it is that, yes, they are generally loving, kind people, and are not going to be creating a lot of issues and drama, because we love what we do at the post office, and we don't want to necessarily be dealing with in-camp drama during that. Some other things that we design for, or other kind of design criteria, and I've talked about this before in other forums, but there's like a tension, a healthy tension, I think, between chaos and organization. And if there's too much chaos, things stop being much fun. If there's too much organization, things can stop being fun enough. And so it's like at that kind of intersect, right where they meet, chaos and organization, that's the sweet spot where fun can really happen. And also designing for, so it's kind of finding that place for your particular camp, and different camps will find that in a different place. And then the final thing I'll mention is also designing for maximizing freedom and fun. And for us, that meant things like we provide kitchen infrastructure, but we don't provide coordinated meals except for 2 during the whole week. And that allows people to kind of come and go when they want. They don't have to be there for meal times, but also a lot of spontaneous generosity of people cooking, and there's more than what they need, and they give it to the other campmates. And so it just kind of creates this flow around food, which for us is at that kind of right place of freedom and also maximizing fun. So those are a few things that we use that, and it's the development of those criteria that helps limit the size of what of our camp. And so far that's worked pretty well organically.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a sweet spot, freedom and fun, and
chaos and organization.
Chaos and organization. As a Libra and Gemini, I really appreciate that sweet spot.
Can I add one more thing?
Oh yeah, Ariel.
I wanted to add, like, one thing I didn't mention yet is that we do have a camper questionnaire, and so that's really helpful too, right? Because that goes out way in advance of actually getting to Playa, and that really helps people assess, like, is this the right camp for me? Are they the right camp? You know, are they the right participant for this camp? And so I think that also helps in terms of like keeping it small.
Yeah, absolutely, and getting the expectations of those campers, like what do they expect out of it, and how do they expect to participate or not. Gerflash, why don't you unmute yourself, and I do see Diana next. Thanks for raising your hand.
Yes. Well, I'll say with over 40 people, every one of which is happy to help, but just as soon be out there playing. We had, in fact, we probably still have a position called mayor of the camp. And that person is supposed to be there for that half day or whatever it is. that hasn't worked. In fact, I should say it hasn't been observed. So we may ditch that idea. I don't know. It's just not, it's not an idea that's happening. And it's just like by consensus, nobody's voting for it, you know, but they're voting with their feet elsewhere. So we have to revisit that. Also, we had one fellow way back, a previous camp name, but it was the same core, called Cartoon Commune when we were just small. But we had one guy that we loved. His name, by the way, is Fuentes, which means fountain. I call him the fountain of use because he was really essential. And we were doing the green thing, which we still are. But at the time, Earth Guardians was handing out 2 tickets to Burning Man next year, the following year. And I didn't know that when I filled out their form. I just thought, well, we're doing green. Let's tell them we're doing green. We did it. We won. We had an extra ticket. And so we gifted it to the fellow, to our fountain man, who had solutions where no one else did. Very creative guy. But he couldn't afford it that year. And so we got him in, and anytime he can come back, he's in. Okay. Also, we had one guy a couple years ago who was a cousin or nephew of one of our hard workers. And this guy was a non-worker. He was a slough off. He's the only one we've ever had who was deliberately not invited to be back, or invited not to be back, I should say. And but as far as the team goes and the gifting goes to each other, we do have an evening meal that volunteer teams will say, I'll take Monday, I'll take Thursday, I'll take whatever. And they get together and prepare a menu. I mean, sometimes it's hamburgers and sometimes it's beef bourguignon, whatever. And some fine, somebody decided to single-handedly, she ran a bake shop and she brought in bagels and lox and cream cheese and donuts, and that breakfast lasted like 3 or 4 days. Okay, it was just beautiful. But that's what I got to say. But there is gifting. By the way, we were happy. When we started, we were on the 6 o'clock, 6:30, right around the neighborhood, and we were happy there. But we got moved, and we said, "Wow, what is this going to only be gay camps? Oh no! But you're out of here." Don't know. So I go back and visit Celestial Bodies and all the others that over there I really like. So I go visit them. So
thank you for your flash. Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm hearing is like there's a vetting process. Some people contribute more, some maybe less. You might call them a hippie, I don't know. There is, I think there's a bigger kind of like existential question here too about Burning Man. We try to be as inclusive as possible, but there's only so many seats at the table for an entire city, let alone every single camp. And these questions are really important for us to think about, who do we invite and how do we make it more open, and who are we excluding if we include someone? Those are really hard questions that I know we're asking ourselves within, Burning Man headquarters. And I know that every camp is thinking about too, when you're saying, okay, I have a few number of DGS tickets or a few number of people that make sense for the tight-knit community we want. But yeah, there is some sussing out, and it's good to just learn what people are doing. Diana, you have your hand up, so I'm gonna lower your hand and go for it.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much. I think a lot of what folks have been saying have really resonated. I think in particular, I forget who said it, but getting folks to join who are excited to be a part of your camp, not just excited to burn, and sort of like making that difference. So I have been camping with Star Barf in the 430 sector for the past 9 years, and we've fluctuated a lot in size. And my question I have more of a question than a comment. So we are a radical duocracy. So we don't have a camp lead, and it's chaos and fun. And when we were a big camp of like 50 to 70 people, this really worked because there are enough people who are committed to fill all the important camp roles and get stuff done. And then as we've shrunk in size to a smaller camp, this sort of lack of hierarchy and lack of structure hasn't really translated. And so I'm wondering how folks use hierarchy and roles in their camp, and if anyone uses a non-hierarchical community-based approach.
That's a fantastic question, Diana. I had a similar question to ask later, but you're beating me to it. I'd love to hear from one of the panelists first. So I don't know, Kirk or Gary, Kamish, do you want to take this one, and then we can open it up to the rest of the group?
Well, I think leadership is important when things are really going bad. Let's say if your ship is sinking, it's good to have a captain to help organize things. But I think for day-to-day stuff, I don't tell people what to do. And, you know, at Video Bus Camp, we've never really, I mean, I organize camp and people will ask me questions, but we're pretty much leaderless. And I think anybody who's camped with us will say, oh yeah, Gary's over there, but you know, it's like, what do you need? Because I can help you.
So you're saying it works. Do other people have ideas about how to structure, you know, an attempt at being flat and leaderless, but still get things done? It sounds like that was the question. Since there's hands here, I'll just let's do Ye and then Ashley. You just need to unmute yourself. There you go.
So I have been in both unleaderless camps where it's just everybody do what you want, and camps that had strong leadership. And my experience over 4 camps, 2 that were unstructured and 2 that had strong leaders, is that having a strong leader is really important, but you also have to have a crew that takes care of that leader, because that leader will work himself into self into the ground to get it right and do it good and all of that. And I volunteer in departments, but in my camp, I'm a fluffer with a P, not that kind of fluffer, y'all. So when we're building and when we're striking, I take care of my camp. I take care of my neighbors. You know, I come out with the tray of stuff every couple of hours to make sure that, you know, I tell people, you need to sit in the shade for a while. And those people, I moved into a camp that's all about steel-toed work boots and riding crops to get their shit done. And they run, you know, amazing mutant vehicles, the snail car and the serpent twins. And when I moved into their camp, I always move it. When one camp closes down, I move into the neighbor camp, because the neighbor camp is like, yay, we get the fluffer. And my first day in that camp, I went and I put on my steel-toed work boots and my work gloves. And they were like, oh no, that's really cute. Go back to making the food trays, because that's important. And that's how I met my current camp boss. You know, I tapped him on the shoulder as he was like, yeah, everybody's got to do everything right now. And I was like, dude, have some melon, have a little salami, have a little of this, take a break, let your people go find potties, you know, because they just arrived. And I've done it with many, many camps. I've made villages that way, of these completely disparate camps, when those disparate camps were like, no, we want the fluffer. No, we want the fluffer. No, we want the fluffer. And I'm like, fuck you. You got to all live in the same place. I'm not driving across the playa to fluff people. I'm just not. And so I've made 2 villages that way. And it worked, you know, where you bring all these disparate people together. I brought kite flyers and metal workers and cowboys from Elko, Nevada into a village.
Thanks,
So,
Ye.
you know,
Yeah, it sounds like, you know, to me, it reminds me of what Laughing John was saying earlier about that sweet spot between like freedom and chaos, and, or I forget the polarity exactly.
and making the expectations clear. I think that's important.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody comes into your camp, you're like, okay, you're going to take 4 shifts over the week. And these are what the shifts will look like. And you're going to take 4 and we're going to hold you accountable, or whatever your structure looks like. I think that's really important.
We got a couple other hands, so I want to make sure we get time to get those voices in. And then we're coming in on just 20 more minutes. So thank you for the comment, Ashley, and then Peta. Don't look at the camera, Ashley, just.
Thank you. Apologies, everyone. I'm driving, so lack of eye contact is going to be a thing. So I'm in a camp called Buddha Camp. We are in the 430 sector, and we've been in that place for, oh my God, probably the better part of a decade now. And we have very strong leadership. Our plan for 2020 was to expand into a village, and all of our camp councils run by really strong women, which has worked out really well for us. And part of what makes our leadership work really well is that some of that responsibility within that leadership is relinquished as of Tuesday. So essentially, if we start our camp, you know, we've got camp orientation on Sunday, which is mandatory for all of our campers. That way, every single person in our camp is familiarized with how everything is run, what is and is not for, you know, camper use, instead of, you know, as opposed to like in a kitchen, what you can take out of what's communal versus what is not. Everything in the front of our house and the back of our house is laid out with instructions so that come Tuesday, one of our camp leads, Carolyn, just basically says, Mama's gonna fuck off now. So you are all expected to perform accordingly. As adults, if you guys have questions, you are more than welcome to ask, but it really does take a lot of the pressure off of leadership and put the onus on our campers who have equity in our camp. Everyone shares equity. And we have the expectation that they behave as such. In terms of how leadership goes throughout the week, instead of having, you know, our individual camp leads continue to operate at full force, we actually assign deputies who are responsible. It's obviously on a volunteer basis, but each day we have a deputy who is a volunteer who decides that they're going to hang out at camp all day and wait, you know, for either deliveries from like Nico, or if we've got a produce run going, then they are responsible for making sure that camp continues to run like a well-oiled machine. And then leadership, who has taken the last, 9 months to a year in planning everything and also making sure that our camp rises from the dust, is able to actually enjoy themselves. And it works out in such a way that people not only feel more so involved in the camp, but they actually share an element of equity and pride in making sure that the camp remains functioning throughout the entire week. And they themselves are getting a taste of what leadership sort of feels like, so that if something goes wrong, all eyes don't just fall back to where's her fearless leader and how is she going to handle this. It then becomes more of a communal effort in problem solving as a leader.
That's great. Thanks for describing that. I think that you're not able to see the chat, but I think there's some folks that are structured similarly. Someone actually asked, has anyone have experience with sociocracy. Am I saying that right? Small circles of flat leadership responsible for smaller parts of camp. So I just want to bring that out just in case you're not able to see the chat. PETA, I know you mentioned delegation earlier in the chat. You want to say more about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that as one of the co-leads for the camp, I found that delegating, and this is what Ashley was talking about, that delegating really helped me have a good time, because instead of the questions coming to me and just maybe with this sociocracy, is that we have like a lead for gray water or a lead for Leave No Trace, and then I can tell our campers, ask the person for Leave No Trace about that question. So I could actually have a little more freedom to have fun and not have everybody coming to me. And like Ashley was saying, then it shares the responsibility of the camp among all of our campers. And I think people really want to participate. They want to be part of it. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, PETA. I'm going to actually put Kirk on the spot, just because I know that Walter's you may be the largest camp in the room right now. I'm curious. It sounded like you downsized from 225 to 175. How did you do that? And what kind of cultural impact did that have?
Yeah, so it surprisingly happened naturally. And we began to talk about changing from being solely art car and sound camp focused to wanting to build some structures. And that really did, I think, have an effect on who was interested in going for that year. We also slightly altered the name from Camp Walter to Camp Alter. And we, for the first time, had dues. So, I think a combination of all of those factors, we didn't have to really turn anyone away. And we ended up with, the size that we did. Interestingly, we never turned people away, and the growth was very organic over the years from, starting out around 20 and growing year over year. And I thought it was interesting that without, telling people that they couldn't come, that the camp actually did shrink and was a much better size for us as well.
So it naturally happened. You didn't have to kick people out, and
Nope.
You didn't meet certain criteria.
No. And really some of the reason for the growth over the years before was just simply the amount of work, being on the corners and doing 7-day-a-week programming and, running a lot of different aspects of the camp. We also did use a form of the sociocracy, I guess. We had all of the functions of camp broken out into smaller groups. And those are probably, groups of 40 or so that would cluster around some function. And so we really did have camps within camps, even though it was larger.
Yeah, I think we find that often, even with groups of 25, right? There's still like pods of 4 or 5 that can form out of that. And that still remains a good unit, like the smaller units still organized.
Yeah. I think people want to be in those smaller groups.
Yeah. I think it sounds like we started off by saying small camps are great for intimacy. And I think that is often sometimes, especially with how overwhelming the playa can be, having that trusted circle of people is critical, I think, in having a great time out there. I know we don't have much time yet, and I kind of want to open it up to other folks who are thinking about this, but I mentioned earlier, 2021's a mixed bag. We started off with a pandemic, we might end with a pandemic, and we might still be able to burn. I'm curious how people are feeling at this moment, and are your camps thinking about shrinking? Are they thinking about what does that look like for you? I know that this is can be a very loaded question, but yeah, I think that being able to kind of see where people are at helps us all kind of hear the barometer. And I know that there are camps out there that already made statements saying we're not coming back in 2021 for various reasons. You know, all that's really respected, and I'm curious where folks are in here, and especially, I guess, folks who are thinking about coming, but are like actually only, you know, half or a quarter of our camp are going to be there this year, or something to that extent. It looks like Brian has your hand raised, so please go ahead and raise your hand if you have a comment to make.
Thanks, Level. I'm from Camp Religious as Fuck, and I'm planning on going if the burn happens. Our camp is going to go in some form. There are a good number of folks that I think won't go. But I was relieved once I started to entertain the thought of a smaller programming camp. Like realizing that if we went, we don't have to have all the programming that we had before, and was just, I would love to go to the burn and have it just be simple and small. So I'm eager about the possibility of a sort of a scaled down burn with much less expectation of productivity from my camp.
Thank you, Brian. Ariel, and then Joel.
Yeah, so this is definitely a big conversation, both at Gender Blender, and also we've had a lot of actually meetings with a bunch of the queerhood camps to talk about, are we going to come back or not come back? And for Gender Blender, I just want to share like where our heart and soul is right now, is that we're pumping a lot of our energy and effort into a really important grant program called the Black Lives Matter Trans Grant Program. And it's specific for people who are Black and trans. And so we don't know if we're going to come back to Playa or not. I think a lot is riding on if Burning Man is happening or not happening. I think a lot is riding on, are people going to be able to get vaccinated or not? Is it going to be safe? Are people in our community even going to have the financial resources after such a wreckage of a year? But we had this big Gender Blender meeting, and we talked about what does it really mean for us to be a camp? And what is our main goals right now? And we really realized that we wanted to support our Black trans siblings and show up for them in a major way. And so what we did was we fundraised. We basically talked about the fact that by not going in 2020, what is the money that we didn't spend? So what money did you not spend on gas or on your flight or on your Burning Man ticket or on your costumes? Can you take that money and give it to Black trans people who are really struggling the most right now in this country? And so we set up a grant program, and there's an actual application for it. And you know, my goal is to actually get other Burning Man camps involved in this, right? Because we did it just within ourselves. And so we were able to raise $6,000, right? And that's just us, our small camp. But imagine if lots of burners were like, okay, it didn't happen in 2020. We don't know what's going to happen in 2021, but all of us kind of have a Burning Man budget. What if we took from that budget and gave to Black trans people? And the people that applied, we've already had 8 people receive this grant, and it's money that went directly to their housing, to their food, to their medical bills. One of the people that applied actually was shot because of their trans identity and faced an immense amount of violence, and the money that we were able to give them went directly to helping and healing that experience and that process. And so for us at Gender Blender, that's our goal and our passion right now. And I'm gonna put up the website so you can check it out. And I'm really happy to have people collaborate on this. Like right now it's called the Gender Blender Black Lives Matter Trans Grant, but my dream vision is that it would be like the Burning Man Black Trans Lives Matter Grant. So I really hope that y'all are invested and interested, and I would love to collaborate. I'll put my contact info out there too. And we're always looking for people to work on this with us.
Thanks, Ariel. I'm really glad you shared that link. Thank you for taking that leadership to start this. You know, I think there's been a lot of need for mutual aid in this time, right? For disaster relief and for Black Lives Matter and for many issues. I think, yeah, we could, I'm trying to figure out how we can help amplify those too. And I think that there's folks at Burning Man Project. Please also rely on our channels. You know, we can post it on our social media. We can post it on Burning Man Journal, Jackrabbit Speaks. So folks have other initiatives going that are really helping folks outside of Black Rock City. That is part of what it means to be a burner. So thank you, Ariel. I think Joel is next, and then we'll take Lori.
Thanks, Level. I've been, you know, literally every day trying to track the distribution of vaccines and the rates of COVID and trying to figure out what it means to have a safe event. And you know, we talk about this for a long time, I think. But I've basically simplified it in my mind to, as long as there's a reasonable way to hold Burning Man where everybody's vaccinated, and that can still, we can still put up a city and get people vaccinated on time, that would certainly be a safe event. And right now, it does look like that would happen. Not every single human being in the world is going to be vaccinated, but I believe that the way it's going, that anybody that wants to be vaccinated will be able to be vaccinated in time. So, based on that, I'm also hearing a lot of camps that, due to the events of the year, are not going, and that's completely understandable, or would prefer to do something else, or would take the year off, or whatever. And I think there's a lot of people right now that are kind of looking outside their windows, and they see, frat boys partying down at the bar outside their window, and they say, that's highly irresponsible. I don't want to be that person. And they're sort of not really translating, well, will there be a change in the COVID situation between what it feels like today in February and what it's going to feel like in August? And so I actually believe that what's going to happen is we're going to have a really, like, a lot of dirt is going to be sort of dug up and spun around at Burning Man. A lot of camps that were there every year doing exactly the same thing on exactly the same plan. And it's like, oh, that must be the Dr. Bronner's camp. They change their name every year, but their events are scheduled Wednesday through Saturday. That's how you know it's the Dr. Bronner's camp. And it's like, come on, camps that are doing exactly the same thing every single year, if they don't show up and somebody else shows up and does something, more creative, smaller, larger, I think that's going to be kind of good to try to break out of some of those patterns. And so one of the things I fully expect to happen, if it doesn't happen, we won't go. If there's another, the vaccine doesn't work, if there's another, if the Burning Man org can't put on a safe event, then it won't happen. If it doesn't happen, I think what's going to happen is we're going to find out that this is a real go in June and July. We're going to have to work a lot harder to squeeze into a couple of months what we might have spread out over 6 months. And we're also going to find a lot of people that want to go to Burning Man this year because they're suddenly emerging from COVID and looking around and saying, whoa, I'm vaccinated. My friends are vaccinated. It's safe. I want to go. This may be the easiest year to get tickets it's ever been, with everybody pre-announcing in January that they're definitely absolutely not going. Even with a smaller number of tickets, I think this is the year where I think, it's a chance to come and to show up and to do something kind of new. And so that's what I'm gearing up for with my camp is, to be a little bit bigger and flashier, have more events, to do stuff that's never been done before, not necessarily in a expensive way. We're not trying to be White Ocean or whatever, but to actually like put on hours and hours of interactivity on major streets with lights and bring a lot of new people into Burning Man and get them all acculturated. And the last thing I want to say, and I'm sorry that I've kind of hogged the mic here, is that one thing I've heard from the conversations is this feeling that we'll all return stronger if we just take one more year off, that somehow that will make Burning Man come back stronger in 2021. And I don't really feel like that's true. I don't know why people feel that way. I feel like there's a lot of muscle memory in how Burning Man is put together, and we got to keep that. We got to keep that going. And if we come back after 3 years and look at what's going on in the storage unit in Reno, and everything has been rusted, and there's nobody left in our camp that understands how to fit together the whatever thingies for the shade structures, because those people got married and wandered off. What's going to happen every year that passes, we have fewer and fewer veterans that are able to come back, and more newbies that want to come because they saw it on Instagram. And, my fear is if we take another year off just to relax and rest and rejuvenate ourselves so that we can come back stronger than ever, you're going to come back to, 30% instead of the usual 70%, veterans. You're going to come back to 30% veterans and 70% Instagrammers or hippies or whatever you want to call them. I really think we got to somehow keep this knowledge going in some way, shape, or form. So that's just my personal opinion, and I'll shut up now.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. We have only time for a couple more statements, so I'm going to try to wrap us up right after those. But yeah, I actually have to admit, we sent out that survey, the Foresight 2021 survey. I think many of you probably filled it out. And most camps that said they were going to return said they'd either be about the same size and interactivity or be bigger, which surprised me because I think our theory was everyone's going to go smaller. But we have yet to see how this will all pan out. But it's interesting to know that you're saying your camp is like, let's go hard, let's go bigger, let's go brighter. Lori, you are next, and then I have Gary in the queue, and then we'll just wrap up. So Lori, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oops, is that me?
Yep, that is you.
Hi all. So I'm Laurie, Mr. Slumina from Salt Lake City, originally from Reno, Nevada. My feelings are, you know, I was blessed to be close to the Black Rock Playa for 20 years. So I was able to go out there when nobody was there and land sail and see it go from 2,500 people to 80,000 people. My question is how as a community are we going to deal if we can't get out to the playa this year, and perhaps support regional and our local artists, and you know, deal with our family, our tribes. I'm a special ed teacher, so I would love to see anyone that has information or willing to work with me on a camp dealing with sensory integration for kids that have autism. And I know that the kid camps are not always a big favorite for people, but there are families that bring their children out there, and that's something that I think that we need to look at. You know, I've been involved in many different camps, primarily VW camp. I did several different sculpture camps, Etch-a-Sketch camp, and Hestia 2020. And it just involves so many pieces of people. We did a temple burn with John Ward and our group here from Salt Lake City. They're amazing. And it just takes so much energy and really collaboration and respect. And I do believe that we all need to decide how that is, that leadership, as well as how we're going to look forward, because we're not going to be where we were 2 years ago, obviously. So I would love to have maybe our campfire next month, if we do that, to look at the questions of how regional burns look like and how they might go forward, because if we can't go out to Burning Man, or if there's like limited amounts of people that are going to be allowed. I mean, with different states, there are only certain amounts of people that are allowed to, you know, congregate. I mean, here in Utah, we've, you know, it's been very challenging. Different states have been locked down. What that travel looks like and how our safety protocols are going to look like as well, you know, emotionally and physically. I really want us all to think about like how that looks like. We have our wonderful regional burn here, but a lot of other state regional burns are being canceled due to lockdowns or so I guess my question to all of us is to look at that as something that we're going to have to change and be prepared for, because so many of us do want to go to the playa, but so many of us will not be able to physically leave, you know, Austria or Australia or Japan or all these beautiful people that we have met across the globe due to travel restrictions. So what's going to happen in our backyard, and how can we support one another? Like Trixie was saying, you know, setting up a GoFundMe, or, you know, bringing into diversity into our community. Basically, those are my questions this evening. And this has been a wonderful dialogue. I've been very happy to see faces that I haven't seen in many months. And thank you for hosting this.
Yeah, thanks, Laurie. We know there's a lot of things to talk about. So unfortunately, we're at a little overtime. I don't think we can entertain all the answers to those questions right now. I do want to mention a couple things before we take our last comment. There is another Campfire talk planned in March. We do have a topic in place right now. It's specifically how to be a good neighbor. What does it mean? How do you do that? It's scheduled for March 23rd from 5 to 7 p.m. We actually are also considering mixing up the times of this. This is obviously very West Coast Pacific time centric to try to get around folks' work hours there, but we want to be, our theme camps are worldwide, and we want to be able to kind of get other folks to the table, to this room. And then the other thing too is we will be planning a theme camp symposium this year. I know that folks probably do show up to that. When I say we, I mean like Burning Man Project as like a central staff are trying to figure out, when the right timing for that is, because often the theme camp symposium is like, how to make sure your shade structure doesn't fly away, right? Like, who cares about that right now? We want to make sure that the content is relevant. And we also want to make sure that the content kind of appeals to the moment in time. So if that does mean that there's a final call that says, Burning Man is not happening in Black Rock City, we need to really look at our regionals and things like that. That might be the tone of it. So I would just say stay tuned. We are doing our best to make sure that we meet the needs of our community, our vast and wide community. And I wish we had more than this last hour and a half to keep this conversation going. But I'm gonna call on Gary, who had poked me to say I'd like to say something. So Gary Taylor, Rockstar.
Yep, that's me.
Go for it.
We've been out at Burning Man for 20 years and now running a radio station and a theme camp. And I just
Gary, what's the name of the camp?
Radio Electra.
Radio Electra, thank you.
Yeah. And so anyway, we've got, it rotates between 28 to 35 people usually. We've had more than that from time to time. We had a wedding, and of course more people came because they wanted to be part of the wedding. But the camp in general for this year really wants to go. We all miss each other dearly, miss the event. The conditions I placed on my camp members was that you have to either have the antibody from actually catching COVID and recovering, or you have to be vaccinated if you're going to come and camp with us. If you cannot provide proof of that, then you'll have either you won't be able to buy tickets, whatever the project decides the conditions are going to be on that, or you will have to camp somewhere else. We haven't really seen a loss of people who don't want to come. There's been a little attrition. Some people can't come because of health reasons other than COVID, or job reasons, whatever, finance reasons, but those have been replaced with people who were camp members several years ago and quit coming for whatever reason. So it's working out pretty well. I mean, we're all really excited. I don't see how Burning Man can survive another year without an event happening. I mean, I'm not anywhere knowledgeable about the financial aspects of running the project during the year, but it sure seems like if we let it go another year and it's 2022 until it comes back, that there's a real threat of not being able to exist as an entity because of cash flow. And that's the main thing I worry about, is if we were required to wait another year, is it the end of Burning Man? And of course, people say, well, somebody else will pick up and create an event, but it still won't be the event we know. I really hope that it does happen. I want to see everybody again, but I don't want anybody to die in the process. So they just did a huge event down by Joshua Tree called King of Hammers. It's on a playa, a huge off-road race with 50,000 people. They have a city in some respects it's like Black Rock City called Hammertown. The Bureau of Land Management gave them a permit with protection protocols, face masks, and all of that, social distancing, and they had the blessings of Riverside County, California. So given that, and that there's been no big drama that's come out of that event, it seems like it's giving me hope that Burning Man is going to happen this year. And pretty much that's all I got to say. I hope to see you all out there this year.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you very much. I am gonna call it a wrap because we're at 6:38 and this is only supposed to go till 6:30. I know folks might have dinner plans or maybe another Zoom call to hop on or just time to rest. So thank you all for coming out to tonight's Campfire talk by the virtual Campfire. We are so happy we can offer this on a monthly basis and would love to just keep the conversation going. Stay tuned, there'll be more stuff. I know that we're all sort of waiting by the seat of our pants about like, what's the org gonna do? But please know there's a lot of really a lot of heart and a lot of brain going into all this. And I know you all are matching that too. So thank you very much. Please fill out the feedback form. Thank you to the Camp Network team. Camp Network team, if you wanna just like wave to the camera to say who you are so you can get recognized. Thank you, Camp Network team. These are volunteers that are meeting every week to try to get this up and running. If you're interested in helping to produce these or kind of pitch a topic, I know some folks already mentioned that, you can email us at campsupport@burningman.org and we will get back to you and thank you for your service. All right, please be well, take care of yourselves. Stay warm, stay connected. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Love you all. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Level.
Thanks for